Hello, South Africa. Good evening and welcome to Unfiltered. My name is Rudi Klabi. The economic freedom fighters have finally launched their election manifesto that was in Soshanguve yesterday. It contains what the EFF calls clear commitments that will be realized under its leadership. The party says it will expropriate land without compensation, and there is a particular focus on game farms. We'll talk about that very shortly. It also has good news for social grant recipients, namely grants will not only double, but in addition, they will receive free electricity by being connected somehow to Eskom. They'll be compulsory, free education, nice, comfortable houses with a kitchen, an inside bathroom, toilet, and 2 bedrooms. The party rejects the current minimum wage of 3,500 rand and promises more money in your pocket. All sounds good. It also says that it has concrete plans to change the economic infrastructure. In other words, the look of our economy, which is largely white and poverty and inequality largely black. We know that. And they will emphasize multiple special economic zones that we'll hear about in just a moment. But the big question on all its promises, how is the EFF going to achieve that? Have they calculated the costs? Is the maths in order for them to deliver on these commitments? Well, joining us now is the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Mr. Julius Malema. A pleasure to have you on Unfiltered. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your manifesto is about our land and jobs now. Let's start with the land question. The ANC has almost hijacked this particular theme. Of course, they'll argue that historically they've always committed to land and so on. But the fact of the matter is that in the last 25 years, it's not something that they have amplified as a party until you came along. With the ANC's adoption of this policy in Nasrec, has that not taken the wind out of the sails of the EFF?
Not at all. I mean, today we're reading that the ANC says it is impossible to finish the amendment of the Constitution before the closing of a fifth parliament. So that is somersaulting. They are looking for a way out because it is not their thing. They are not committed to it. Because initially when you start something, you should know if I'll finish it. Don't start it if you can't finish it. The intention was to do exactly that. Hijack it from the EFF and make it their own thing. But they don't have commitment.
So are you saying that as far as you're concerned, land is no longer an election issue for the ANC? Well,
the land issue belongs to the EFF. I mean, even if you are in a queue and somebody's talking about land, someone is going to say, oh, are you EFF? Because you can't take it away from the EFF. It's a synonym for EFF. And therefore, the ANC's an attempt to take it has backfired big time because the intention has always been for the ANC to impress and appease white minorities. And with this policy, the whites are very angry. And Cyril realized that he's going to lose favor with the minorities.
Just talking about land, I mean, you and I are not disagreeing about the historical importance of it, the economic value and benefit of the land, the urgency of it. But not only that, from an identity and a sense of belonging point of view, we agree on all of that. But electoral polls run by various institutions, including universities, they indicate that land is very low on the priorities for the voters. They are interested in education, social welfare, housing, and so on. Not that they don't care about it, but it's not high on their agenda. So why would you posit a manifesto that is overwhelmingly about this particular issue that voters say is bottom of the range, as it were?
Well, we have to reconnect the voter with the land. They've lost interest. They've got no connection with it. They think it's so meaningless. You don't know what land can do until you own one. So our intention is to reconnect the voter with the land, to make the voter fall in love with the land again and understand that their problems can be resolved by the land. Because when they came in, the colonizers, the settlers, the first thing they took was the land. That's how much they appreciated the importance of the land. And the voter was, dealt with in such a way that they've done away with the importance of the land. So they've miseducated the African people, and the African people think land is the last priority in their and people associate land with some untidiness. Like I don't want to farm. I'm from a township.
Backward.
I've always thought it's backwardness until I came into contact with the land and I realized how important this thing is. But
so
we
why
need
the
to educate
focus
them.
on game farms in particular? And I'd like you, in answering that, to also add a little detail for us about how land will be distributed. What is the actual plan? So fine, legislation is passed. We're in South Africa. We can do this in a year, 5 months, whatever. Where do we start? Who gets the land? How do you identify them? And so on.
The first thing is to amend the constitution and make the state a custodian of the land. And then from there, we establish the land councils. That's where all of us will go and make application for the use of the land. If you want land for settlement, you shall indicate. For agricultural purpose, for industrialization, you shall indicate. The land will be allocated to you.
If you qualify, are there some criteria, some qualifications?
No, you must be South African. Yeah. There shouldn't be any qualification.
Shouldn't I have also demonstrated an interest or a presence in agriculture, industry, whatever it is, those criteria?
No, you want land in agriculture.
So we just get it because we want it.
Yeah, and then you don't use it, you lose it.
Okay.
Because you must indicate the purpose. You don't have to demonstrate anything. I want to use it for agricultural purpose. We give you to use it for agricultural purpose. You don't use it. Then we take it and give it to a person who will use it for agricultural purpose.
I'm nervous about the land councils. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
In a country such as ours, where corruption is so endemic, giving a few people power to decide who gets land, to decide our fate, we haven't clothed ourselves in glory as a nation when it comes to corruption. In fact, I dare say governments have not clothed themselves in glory. Why should we trust you? Why should we trust that it will be done properly?
Listen to what the EFF says. It says the land council, then if there's a dispute, there will be a land ombudsman. And if you are not happy with the outcome of the land ombudsman, we will have a land court, which will exist of not less than 10 judges who are there exclusively to deal with land disputes. Okay. So if you are not happy, those are the processes. Currently, the land court in South Africa has got one judge. That's why there is a backlog on issues of land dispute and all that. So it's land council, ombudsman, then the court that still deals exclusively with the issue of the land where people are not satisfied.
Let's talk about jobs. You're talking about these special economic zones and you're focusing on inward industrialization. You're talking about improving the capacity to produce and to export. But the fact of the matter is that there's been a decline in demand for our commodities. There's been a contracted economic activity. And in order for people to produce, you've got to know what the market wants and you've got to have access to the market. Are you not over-promising here by saying we're just going to produce? Where is the market for what we're going to produce and what are we producing?
We have become a dumping site. The reason there is no market, you must start here. You need to start here at home. There must be a demand at home. The first thing that you do, you protect the infant industries in South Africa and make sure you produce here and sell to the South Africans. There are certain basic things that we shouldn't allow. For instance, textile industry used to be one of our biggest industries. Today is a small industry because we have become the dumping site of China. We shouldn't allow that.
The whole world, though, is suffering from that, right?
Absolutely. But we can't say because the whole world suffers from that, we can't do anything.
We can't go against the tide?
No. There are areas where we will trade with the Chinese, for instance. There are a lot of things, the minerals that we produce here, which we can supply to South Africans, beneficiate them here, and then still sell to the Chinese. One of the points we are making in ensuring that we create jobs for our people, we need to beneficiate in South Africa. You can't take chrome raw as it is to China. You are creating jobs in China.
But
we must
Mr.
wash
Malema,
it here.
That's not a new debate. I just remember talking to your former comrades at the ANC, and I know Ben Turok was very, very big on beneficiation. I've interviewed Mr. Floyd Chivambo when he was still in the ANC Youth League about beneficiation. And here we are again in South Africa talking and not doing. What are the obstacles? I suspect that one of the obstacles is that the youth that you want to produce the stuff lacks the skills to produce the stuff. Shouldn't we start there?
No, there is no lack of skills. We should just put resources together and establish, for instance, washing plants in South Africa, give young people the necessary training and then wash those things that we want to beneficiate here in South Africa. I wouldn't account for my former comrades. I don't know why they didn't beneficiate. We are going to be a new government, and we are known that once we speak about something, we do it. So we want industries in the townships. When I grew up in Sishiu, there were factories which were operational. All of them have closed down now. People were employed there. They used to walk to work, and they were not spending too much money on transport. We are saying, let there be areas like that. If Ramudige and Leboa government can do factories and industries, what makes us, a democratic government, fail to also model the same approach the Bantustans have done? You go everywhere else, those factories are there, they are empty. We need to revive them.
We'll pick up on that in just a moment, and I do then want to get to the housing and the social grants, about how we're going to afford this. And of course, the EFF's electoral fortunes, what do they look like? Stay with us.
We are at the forefront of Africa's tech discussion.
We're already planning for the 5G spectrum to be licensed by 2020.
In Mauritius, for fiber migration, we had a strategy. On network, we have gadgets, robots, and more.
We focus on investing in entrepreneurs and technology in emerging markets.
There's technology and social media news on Network with me, Phumelele Zondi, every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. and every Sunday at 5:30 p.m.
One thing about my grandmother, she was illiterate, but she never allowed me, even until now, I'm not a TV person. Read, read, read.
Welcome back. You are watching Unfiltered on SABC 3 and SABC channel 404. The EFF says it has concrete plans to change the economic infrastructure, to create jobs, to give the youth hope in the face of despair. How are they going to do that in an economy such as ours that is hanging by a precarious balance, where youth unemployment is very, very high? And there's another statistic that fascinates me. It's not just about the unemployment level, which sits at 27%, but if you use the more broadened means to define unemployment, it's way over 30. But the point is, even of the percentage of people who are unemployed, 52% of them have never worked at all. Think about that. You're not just unemployed at the moment, but you've never worked at all. Therefore, your chances of even getting into the economic sphere are very limited. Let's just talk about the houses that you're promising us. I mean, 2 bedrooms when I was growing up was kind of a dream. It's a middle class type of existence. You're talking about doubling grants and the minimum wage. Any reasonable person knows that 3,500 doesn't take you far if you consider the transport cost, the cost of food, and I don't know why healthy food is far more expensive than the nonsense that that people eat. But here's the thing. All these promises make sense in an economy that is growing and creating jobs. 3,500 in an economy that does not have money is something. How are you going to do that? Have you calculated, have you done the maths to say this is how we're going to afford whatever promise we have made?
We waste money on useless things. One of those things is a big cabinet with useless deputy ministers. If you cut that out and reduce it, you will save a lot of millions, redirect that money to the poor of the poorest. We are talking about creating factories, jobs for our people. And once you grow the economy, you are able to meet your social obligations. But also, we are saying we need to increase collection of taxes. We must deal, one, with the issue of inheritance tax, where the rich inherit some of these things and they pay lesser tax. We must increase the corporate tax, because for many years, corporate tax has never been increased in South Africa. We must deal with base erosion, illicit financial flows, and tax avoidance, because there's too much money we're losing through tax avoidance. So once we deal with that, we'll save a lot of money, redirect it to the poor. We need to deal decisively with corruption. And corruption, we do not mean a head of procurement office. We need to deal with the president, we need to deal with ministers, we need to deal with public representatives and the civil servants. Once found guilty by a court of law, we'll introduce a law that says you lose all your pension benefits because you have already given yourself a pension. So we need to take that money, go and replace the area where you went to steal from.
All right.
All of that will generate a lot of money for our country.
I think I agree. That's logical. Tighten your belt, do what is efficient, and so on. But the first prize is, growing the economy so that more people work. I'm fascinated by your ideological position on nationalization and the state's role. Many will tell you that it's not government's job to create jobs. They create a conducive environment. It sounds as if the EFF wants more state involvement. And this is what fascinates me. Our neighbors, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Angola, they are moving away from the state's hand, especially when it comes to mining and so on. They are making concessions for foreign investors. For example, on ownership, Zimbabwe is moving away from the 51% indigenous ownership. And then in Angola, if you are an investor and you want to sell some of your produce, you no longer have to sell to the state company. So in other words, they are just relaxing and moving away from the kind of economic policy that I understand you to be positing. But secondly, Mr. Malema, I'm surprised that someone such as yourself, who has been chanting and making the anti-corruption drive your mantra, would want more state involvement when the state has let us down so dismally. That's why we've got so many commissions. Why would we do better?
Really, the state is not inherently corrupt. It's made corrupt by individuals who assume responsibilities and the political parties that do not act on those parties. That's point number one. But point number two, why are we always obsessed with giving examples of failed state on these policies and always avoid China? Mm-hmm. Because China is doing well under the same policies.
Their politics are socialism, but what they do is capitalism.
No, they remain a socialist government under the under the Communist Party. And they is state ownership, firstly of the land. No one has disinvested because the Chinese are owning the land. No one has refused to partner with state companies because majority of these companies, when you see a Chinese construction bank, it's owned by the state and it finances those projects, including partnering with private companies. None of the private companies, including the multinationals, have never refused to partner with a state-owned construction bank from China. So, yes, there might be failed states, particularly in Africa, which are advocating for similar positions. But at the center of that failure was not because of socialism. It's the corruption, the inability to deal with corruption and corruption of the higher leadership. Once you deal with the head, these ones will just follow automatically.
We'll talk a little bit more about that, but just very quickly before we go to our ad break, in your manifesto, I do notice, of course, there is emphasis on land, there's emphasis on agriculture and mining. We know that agriculture is still the biggest contributor to our GDP, but the contribution has been declining. 21st century economies must be looking at communications and ICT. Many ministers are talking about the fourth industrial revolution, but not giving the detail. I didn't get a sense that you gave the detail either.
We give details on everything.
But you're emphasizing sectors that are declining.
No, even in the information and technology, we emphasize fourth industrial revolution. We say the education system now should be linked with the fourth industrial revolution. We shouldn't have schools today without tablets. We shouldn't have kids who are not learning about robotics, not only at pre-tertiary level, including at tertiary level. We go to town about that because we are a younger generation that appreciate that when the fourth industrial revolution comes to South Africa and the world, will still be there and we need to respond to it. Our manifesto deals with that aspect.
Let's take a break. We are going to talk about the EFF as a coalition partner. They've had a taste of being in councils, of being influential. What have they done? Did they fulfill some of their promises? One that I remember is the clinics that are open 24/7. It was adopted in the city of Johannesburg, but yet to be implemented. We'll talk about what's happening in Nelson Mandela Bay, in Tshwane, and so on. Stay with us.
On Network, we have gadgets, robots, and more.
A phone is no longer just an indulgent device or a functional device. It's a part of us.
What if 20 years from now, robots walk the streets alongside humans, doing many of the same jobs that you and I do today?
We find out what you mostly use your laptops for. Is it gaming or good old writing?
Education in the end must prepare young people for the workplace that is being rapidly transformed by technological change.
A new security system, Memeza, is adding a new dimension of safety, with some elderly people saying they feel much safer.
I think a big thing for people is they're just not aware of electric vehicles. They might not realize they're probably a lot easier to incorporate into their driving needs.
There's technology and social media news on Network every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. and every Sunday at 5:30 p.m.
Did you know the big hole digging started in 1871 and ended on the 14th August 1914? The hole produced 2,722 kgs of diamonds. However, one diamond as huge as 490 carat of stone found in the open prior 1868 gave them the interest to dig. Extracted from 22.5 million tons of soil. Today, the hole sits at a breathtaking 214 meters deep. Kimberley Big Hole attracts tourists from all over the world, taking a vintage tram past the city, then cycling around the Big Hole.
Welcome back. We are assessing whether or not the EFF can deliver on its election promises. It launched its manifesto in Soshanguve yesterday. Now, okay, I'm a bit skeptical about opinion polls. I mean, look at what happened in the US, look at the Brexit. They sometimes don't get it right. And certainly when it comes to your electoral fortunes, you can only go up. They're predicting that you're going up to 12%. But looking at Soshanguve in particular, a place of interest, the EFF thought that it would win the ward in the by-election, Ward 37, and you didn't. So is your confidence as the EFF misplaced? I mean, you travel the length and breadth of South Africa acting like the next president. Will you be?
Yeah, we will take over this government.
When? Not this year?
This year.
Got 12%?
Yeah.
Where? How?
We'll take this country over, and the good thing with multi-party democracy is that you don't have to get 51%. You can get 2% and then you become a kingmaker and you say, okay, I'll make the rest of you ministers if I'm a president. Here's 2%. So look at the DA is governing in the metros, they've not won. And sometimes they sleep and they think they've won those metros. They've not won the metros. So you don't require any simple majority. You require strategic partners, participation. And
It sounds like you just enjoy playing them off against each other. I mean, it's any of this ideological and rooted in principle. I'll tell you why. Because in the Sunday Times, they're reporting that when you made promises to the ANC, when they say, let's vote Solim Simanga out, you say, yeah, sharp, we're going to do it. But when you get in there, your guys leave. So you're playing a game here. No,
I'm not playing a game. I'm bargaining for the poor. I said to Soli, okay, we agreed you must go. But if we agree now that we insource 5,000 security guards, we'll leave you alone. And he insourced 5,000 security guards. And then the same year, Mashaba says he wants to pass a budget. And I said to him, we've got 10,000 security guards. He agrees, let's hire them. We'll take them bit by bit until we exhaust the whole number. We're doing that. We said to him, in the budget, we're not going to pass it if he doesn't have 24 hours clinic. It's not only a resolution of the cancer. They are now starting to operate.
And the clinics, what happened to that? Because a lot of us were excited given the needs and the dangerous areas that women in particular have to navigate as they use public transport and so on. What happened to the clinics?
No, we're doing it. We've started it in Johannesburg. We are opening clinics 24 hours.
It was adopted, not implemented.
We're implementing it. It was adopted. We're implementing it in Johannesburg because we have agreed with Mashaba that this is a necessity. People are not sick until 4:30. Why do you close the clinic at 4:30?
Okay.
So it's the most unscientific thing to do. And we've agreed on that. With that simple majority, which you call a game, the poor are benefiting from it.
Talking about that being kingmakers, very quickly on Port Elizabeth, We can't get into the whole history with Trollip and so on. But these are not rumors. Bombani was implicated or accused in an explosive affidavit, not just by the media or anybody else, because then I'd dismiss it, but it was a lead investigator of the Hawks, Henk Fourie. Coming to Tshwane as well, it's not rumor, it's not conjecture. It's the Auditor General that found that the Glad Africa contract was irregularly awarded, and yet you supported Mokitsi Musula. Where do you stand on your anti-corruption drive? Is it sincere?
Irregular expenditure is not corruption. If it's
but
corruption,
it's not good for the council.
It's not good, but it's everywhere. In all the departments, national, provincial, so it means all of them must go if that is going to be the approach. So there is an irregular expenditure, there's a process to correct it by law. This is how you do it, and if the individuals are responsible, you hold them accountable, you can even collect that money from them. Let's do that. There is no evidence really of corruption against Musula. I hate a situation where politicians use administrators as an excuse. Why is Soli not taking responsibility? Why is the DA not taking responsibility?
He says that what was presented to them was very different from what played out.
Yes.
So there was some dishonesty.
So it means he is not capable enough to be a leader, because he should have seen that. Solely, I'm told he adopted a proposal without figures. And I said to him, if you adopt that this thing must go ahead without you seeing the figures, then it's a confirmation that you are not capacitated enough to lead this municipality and take the responsibility for that. Bobani, if there is an affidavit by a leading Hawks, arrest him. Why is he not being charged? We've been told about that affidavit for so long. We cannot just accuse people and remove them.
But you do the same. You do the same, Mr. Malema. I mean, right now, you are accused of all sorts of things, fraud, corruption, racketeering. It didn't go anywhere. And we must take that, because that's fact.
No,
that's
I was charged. I appeared before a judge.
Yeah, but what I mean is you're not on trial. And that is factual. So somebody can't come and keep saying you are guilty of this, guilty of that. When it comes to Pravin Gordon, you say he's got a bank account in Canada.
Yes.
He doesn't. It shows that he doesn't. He goes to court. The people who want to charge him, your Ntlemezas, we can go on and on. The Kruan report into the rogue unit, the judge there retracted and said this didn't happen. Why is it that you won't afford him that same latitude of he hasn't been found guilty?
You are not even allowed to say he doesn't have an account. You can't say that. You can't say
they confirmed.
Nalo and we must agree. You can't say that,
but you
because
can't throw things. You must back it up.
I'm not throwing it up.
Where's the backup?
I've given the police the account number.
But they checked it and they found it doesn't exist.
Which police?
It was reported.
You are relying on Adrian Basson. It's not the police.
But Adrian Basson is an investigative report.
Uzi is nothing. He's police.
The authorities in Canada were phoned, Mr. Malema. You can't make
leave
stuff up.
Adrian Basson. The Hawks, they are Hawks. I've gone to the police station. You must give it to me.
Yeah, but you go there with files. We don't know what's in there. It could just be love novels or things
you can't
like
take
that.
love letters to the police.
You
it's not a place for love.
Because you want people to believe.
It's not
you
Valentine
must
at police station. At police station, I backed up, gave them the account number, gave them the name of the sister who's in Canada, who's operating these things, gave them the necessary evidence. I didn't just talk.
Okay, we have to leave it
so
there.
You can't say I'm just talking without backing it up. I went to police station.
We'll see. Let's see what transpired. And please give the new National Director of Public Prosecutions a chance to do her work.
She must prosecute friends of Pravin,
everybody.
Johan van Lochenbeck, Ivan Pillay
leaving it
must
there.
be prosecuted.
Mr. Malema, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Indeed.